Welcome back to another episode of the Hustle Nation podcast. Today, we've got a real treat. Jose Escobar is in the house. Jose is an award-winning, nationally recognized personal development speaker, 8-time published author, sales professional, husband, and father of 5 children. He leads compelling, high-level communities consisting of entrepreneurs and advanced leaders through 2 multi-six-figure business models that have now surpassed 7 figures. The Entrepreneur's Bookshelf, and the Connected Leaders Academy. Jose's magnetic personality shines in his presentations, where he has reached audiences collectively of over 30 million. And that radiates throughout his dynamic coaching programs, inspiring his international 300-plus entrepreneur and executive clientele to master their personal and professional excellence. His past sales experience have led him to amass over 30 million in revenue for the companies he served and his family's sales and coaching in the martial arts industry, which has positively affected the lives of over 5,000 families for the better. Jose, welcome to Hustle Nation.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome.
Likewise.
We're thankful for you being here.
Awesome.
Jose, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So first of all, I was born in Washington, D.C., first generation here in the U.S. Both of my parents, the whole bloodline lineage is from Guatemala, Central America. I was raised in Montgomery County, Maryland all my life. I'm 40 years old, happily married to my wife, have 5 kids, 16-year-old boy, travel baseball player, always on the ball field, somewhere in the mid-Atlantic region area. And let's see, I have an 11-month-old boy, so 2 boys on either end, 3 girls in the middle, 6'4", I have a background in martial arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai kickboxing, just for recreational purposes and self-defense. Historically, before I became a full-time entrepreneur, I was in the banking world. I was a branch manager for a couple of different banks. Then I went into life insurance, and then I went into property and casualty, and did some great work for State Farm Liberty Mutual. Transitioned into the martial arts space. I was a sales director for a global martial arts company for many years, just traveling the world with a corporate card, treating all kinds of amazing people to fancy dinners and cocktails, and always growing the business. I've always been in sales, networking, coaching, and management, and networking in some capacity, so that's kind of my bread and butter. And then fast forwarding to most recently, January 15th of 2022, I decided that I was tired of creating wealthy people in the corporate arena. I figured it's time for me to start creating my own wealth and start my own business. So I had a little rough conversation with my wife, who she kind of gave me the nudge, a bitter pill to swallow in terms of a conversation, a heart-to-heart that she had with me, which we can surely explore at some point during this podcast. And that led me to launch my 2 businesses, which my thing that I say now most recently is that I went from no business at all to 2 businesses with 8 income streams to 7 figures in 15 months. And I did it with no website, no paid ads, $0 in marketing budget, 0 funnels or fancy automation, and 0 email marketing campaigns or email lists. It was all 100% organic word of mouth growth. So that's where we're at now. And I'm excited to keep scaling and growing and creating massive impact in the world.
That's the true definition of bootstrapping your business. I love that. I believe it's truly possible for everybody listening. But I'm curious, you had this conversation with your wife. Of all the things you could have done, of all the ideas you could have and probably did have, why and how the Connected Leaders Academy?
Well, so my wife pulled me aside January 15th. I remember it like it was yesterday. And she said, Jose, listen, she's like, you're a go-getter, you're ambitious, you're very inspiring. I love how you work hard for your family, and you're a dedicated husband and father, and you do all these great things. She gave me the sandwich method, right? She said all these nice things, and then the message in the middle, she said, but, and my heart kind of went to my stomach. I could hear a pin drop. I was waiting for her to give me some right hook. And sure enough, she said, at some point, you got to start making money. And I was like, oof. So it was tough. I didn't like it, but I received it. I needed to hear that. I spent tens of thousands of dollars on personal development prior to that conversation. I'm talking about I was going to seminars instead of paying bills, right? I was paying for the high ticket masterminds and getting into tens of thousands of dollars into debt. And at the end of the day, at some point something needed to happen. I had a LLC established for 3 years prior to that date of actually doing something, and I was this guy walking around with my back straight like I'm an entrepreneur, but I had no money in my account. So I realized, and my wife was absolutely right. So that basically led me to say, you know what, Jose, you're a connector, you're a networker, you know thousands of people on a first name basis from all of the events you've gone to over the years on your own dime and all of the amazing events and places you've gone on your company's dime. It's just a matter of finding a way to monetize the fact that all of these people know you, but they don't know each other. So I said, if I could just bridge the gap and realize, you know what, I can charge a small fee to bring all these people together for 5 reasons. So they can grow personally and professionally, so they can scale their influence, be more of the authority in their space, so they can move the needle in their business, more referrals, leads, clients, endorsements, more money, the bottom line. Number 4, to develop their skill sets, because we're all working on something. None of us have arrived. So a community where iron sharpens iron. And number 5, to grow your network and your circle exponentially with more intentionality, some real ROI, some real results, and do it in a different way than how everybody else is doing it. And that's why I launched it. That was the lowest hanging fruit of what was right under my nose. And I launched it, and sure enough, it just grew exponentially from there.
What was the hardest part in the beginning when you were working on those first couple of clients to get into your community?
The hardest part for me was probably the wrestling back and forth with, do I tap into email marketing? Do I tap into funnels? Do I do some paid ads? The cool thing with me is that I already had a lot of connections, right? I already had a lot of people who know me, like me, and trust me. And those initial people, I didn't have to really sell them very hard. I just had to paint the dream, right? Paint the vision and say, listen, just imagine you come in here to a community where we can all support each other. You're going to get on more podcasts, more shows, more speaking engagements, build friendships with like-minded entrepreneurs. You're going to start getting leads and referrals and collaborations and endorsements, potential partnerships, more money, more clients. It just makes sense. And just imagine you come into the Connected Leaders Academy at a dirt cheap, low cost of a founding member, which is a no-brainer, right? Pennies on a dollar. And you come in and we're going to scale this thing to, over 1 million members in 100 countries, create a massive global impact all over the world. And as you know, when we as entrepreneurs become better, we serve our clients better. When we serve our clients better, the world becomes a better place. Wouldn't you want to be a part of that? So I just painted the vision and the dream. And sure enough, 100 people joined me in 30 days. And that's kind of how it started. And then from there, the hardest thing outside of like wrestling with what is next, do I go to paid ads and all that stuff? Because it was hard. Everybody was pitching me. All the experts left and right were saying, Jose, you're not going to do it unless you have this. You need this. You need that. You need that. And I said, well, I made it this far. I can make it to the next stage. And then I made it that far. I can make it to the next stage. And I said, at this point, I'm not going to stop and do any of that stuff until I get to $1 million. And that's kind of been the thing.
How close are you in that journey?
Well, it depends on what journey you're talking about. If you're talking about $1 million in revenue, that's happened already. But because I have seven other income streams, I have 7 other income streams. Connected Leaders Academy is just one of them, right? But in terms of the getting to 1 million members in 100 countries, we are ways from that. But very soon, I'm going to start implementing a website, funnels, automation, emails, you name it, and we're going to kind of start scaling a lot more quicker very soon.
So Jose, you talk about that moment of truth moment in your life, right? Where your wife is essentially calling you out. And I think, a lot of times in life that some loved one in our life is saying that to us. And I know like in my life, I've had a number of those as well. When you first hear it, you really don't want to receive it. I'm curious, in your mind, when you first heard that, was it a light bulb moment where like that moment you realized what you needed to do, or was it more a gut punch that you recovered from in the days to follow?
Oh, it was definitely a gut punch. I already knew that I wasn't doing what I needed to do. Right. Mm-hmm. And to an extent, I think it was imposter syndrome. I think it was, in my mind, consciously, I said it's perfectionism. I wanted to make sure everything was just right before I launched. And as I peeled the onion back further, I realized it's really just procrastination in disguise, right? It's really lack of confidence. It's really all of the things that a lot of people struggle with that don't want to acknowledge. And it was time. I basically said, you know what? Like, I've been learning for a long time. I've been aiming, but never firing the trigger, right? So it was just time. I knew enough. I didn't need to learn anymore. I didn't need to invest in more things. I just needed to take some massive action and put one foot in front of the other, some hard work, some commitment, some consistency, some accountability, follow through, grit, mental toughness, all those things, and the hustle, like you guys talk about here in Hustle Nation, right? So that's what it was about. That's exactly what happened.
And so, looking back on it now, was there something along the way that you wish you would have moved sooner? I mean, obviously today you're having success. You would have rather you made a decision quicker, but was there things along the way where you realized, I could have done this 2 years sooner and had the same amount of success? Or do you feel like it was the right timing? Like, although your wife wanted you to do it sooner, do you feel the timing was right? Because, obviously you've had massive success in a short period of time that I think a lot of people kind of dream of.
I'm a firm believer in divine providence. I believe in appropriate timing. I believe that we all need to get certain things out of our system before we're ready for success. I don't think we're going to do what we're supposed to do unless we're ready for it, right? And for whatever reason, I wasn't ready for it. I thought I was ready for it, but I wasn't ready for it, which is why it didn't show up, right? Only until I decided, you know what, I got to do something and I'm capable of doing it and I believe in myself. And then I backed that decision with a commitment, because so many people decide to do things, and you can decide today I'm going to do this and decide tomorrow I change my mind. Commitment is all the way through. It's 100%. It isn't, flirting with the idea of success. It's saying I'm committed to the process. I understand it's going to be an uphill journey all the way, and I'm going to have to live consistently in my discomfort zone. And the minute I accepted that and said I'm fully committed to this journey, no matter what happens, without looking back, putting the blinders on, not reading my press clippings, and just believing in me 100%, and things are going to happen, sure enough, they started to happen. And one little piece of success in something leads to another, that leads to another. And the funny thing, not the funny thing, the interesting thing is that Connected Leaders Academy wasn't even my first thing, right? I started with a program. I launched a program called the Morning and Evening Routine Mastery Program, right? All about the bookends of your day: morning routine, evening routine, maximum productivity, like Hal Elrod, what's this guy's name? Robin Sharma type stuff, right? So I started with that program. That did a few $100,000, like over $300,000 in a year. So I said, well, since that's taking off, I might as well write a book. So I wrote the book on the program, right, called Winning the Day: An Entrepreneur's Guide to Morning and Evening Routine Mastery. And then I said, well, since I wrote that book, I might as well create a planner to go with it. So I created this planner called the 90-Day Battle Plan. And I said, well, since I have that book, I might as well find some influencers, some people that have massive networks, and find some people that have fancy titles like, international bestseller, and let me co-author some books. So I went from writing one book that year in 2022 to becoming an 8-time award-winning, best-selling published author. It just sounds better than being a best-selling author. So I wrote 8 books last year, and then I said, well, what's the next logical step? Let me become a paid speaker. So I got John Maxwell certified, and I started speaking all over the country. And I'm speaking actually this Thursday in Romania. I'll be in Romania doing something there. So, and that led to Connected Leaders Academy. So there was 3 things that led to Connected Leaders Academy. And then after Connected Leaders Academy, I said, let me get into the live event space. And then I launched an event, live events. I did 6 last year. I'm doing 7 this year. And then I said, let me create my own swag: t-shirts, hoodies, hats, journals, bookmarks, coffee mugs, you name it, whatever. And then I launched a mastermind 7 weeks ago, right? And that's a $35K offer where I'm teaching people how to go from where they are now to $1 million organically with my systems. And in 7 weeks, I enrolled 21 people, and we're just getting started with the whole thing. But the big piece of what I'm saying here is, in business, what I realized is there's always that next logical step in terms of the income stream. What is that next logical step that kind of feeds into it? Because when somebody buys my book, the next thing they're going to do is jump into my course or my program. And then after that, they're going to say, hey, you know what? I want to join your membership. And then from the membership, say, hey, I want to go to one of your events. And while I'm at your events, I want to wear your t-shirts and your hoodies. And then while I'm there and I've realized all the value you have to offer, I might as well join your mastermind at the highest ticket. And then at the end of all of that, I might know somebody that I can put you on their stage, and then I hit all the buckets. But anyway, sorry, I went tangent.
So one of the things I'm curious about, a lot of times I think people, the reason they're waiting to take that action, that massive action that you talked about, is they're waiting for motivation. And one of the things I know we've talked about a couple of times, Chris, is this balance between, is it motivation or is it just discipline? Because I think far too often people are waiting for, well, I got to feel it today. I got to have that energy today. What has changed for you in the last 18 months relative to, that you talked about getting over their imposter syndrome? I don't know if that was it just a different level of discipline? Was it just applying discipline to different things? You're just kind of curious about that balance between, call it discipline and motivation.
So for me, morning and evening routine is really what it came down to. Because on the bookends of my day, that started back in 2019 when I was actually doing that consistently, right? And in that 1 year in 2019, I, doubled my income in my day job. I got out of debt that year. I lost 36 pounds from just, working out in the mornings, and became a better father, better husband. Spiritual life went to an all-time high. Intellectually, I started reading a book a week. And emotionally, I was much more stable. So the 10 life domains, Michael Hyatt talks about 10 life domains. So we got to focus on all 10. And so many people only focus on 3 or 4 and disregard the rest, kind of put it under the rug, right? So I did that in 2019, and I said, well, this is some success habits that I can install for the rest of my life. And if I can just add on top of that a business versus a job, the game could change for me. So all I did was, the only difference that happened in January 15th, as opposed to 2019 when I did the morning evening routine, was the discipline piece. The discipline piece of not only staying consistent with the morning evening routine, but actually applying all the information that I've learned, taking action. Because that was my biggest thing. I was just, I think I was dealing with mental constipation, right? I think I just knew too much, and I was overthinking the correct approach on what should I do here, what should I do here, and that was not the recipe. It was just, just make a move and be consistent with it. And once you start putting one foot in front of the other, you're going to know what the next step is. And that's kind of what happened little by little.
So Jose, so many entrepreneurs and even leaders in general often get stuck, or instead of getting stuck, they just don't know what to do next. Is that the advice, or is it different than maybe you'd give someone in the Connected Leaders Academy?
So the question is, if somebody's stuck, what do you do?
Yeah. Or what is the next step? Like, how do you coach someone through that?
So being stuck, I think, is just a symptom of a lack of effective planning, right? So
I'd agree.
I think if you are stuck, it's because you didn't set effective goals, and maybe the frameworks of how you set your goals weren't strong enough. We all heard of the SMART framework, right, to set goals. And then Michael Hyatt all of a sudden leveled that up with the SMARTER framework with the ER at the end, right? And he talks about that in his book, Your Best Year Ever, which I recommend to people all the time. To all my clients, I say, you got to read this book. If you want to bridge the gap between being a goal setter and a goal hitter, which is a big gap, you got to know how to set goals first and foremost. So you got to have goals in all 10 life domains. You got to set the goals. You got to execute the plan. And you got to be consistent and follow through with commitment, right? So if somebody is stuck, I think it's just a matter of going back to the drawing board, to the paper and pen, and saying, where is this plan not working, right? Because it's a goal thing. It's a goal thing. And the goals have action plans associated to it. So you just got to go back to the drawing board. And sometimes it means going back to the basics. So many people get stuck because they try to get so fancy when they just forgot to start picking up the phone to call people.
Jose, I tell people all the time that when I speak, one of the questions on stage I ask is, how many people in the room have a strategy? And if there were 100 people in the room, I could guarantee there's almost never more than 10 people that have their hand up. Follow-up question is, keep your hand up if you have it in document format. And not uncommon that 5 people or less out of 100 have an actual documented strategy. Whether it's financial, business, marketing, whatever, doesn't matter. It's shocking to hear that 5% of people have a strategy. And if you don't have a plan, like you said, how do you know what's next? How do you measure effectiveness? How do you progress? And the answer is you probably don't.
Right. People go with the wind, wherever the wind blows, right? They live by default. They're not setting the intention every single day. They're not creating a plan, a strategy, right? Like you said in the morning. Like I plan my day the night before, right? As the greatest evening routines, right, are the best morning routines begin the night before in your evening routine, right? So many people forget about the evening routine. They just have a morning routine. But I call it the bookends of your day. So my day is already set up for success the night before. When I wake up, I already know what's going to happen and I follow through on it. And everything is systematized and processed in terms of systems and strategy and goals and a plan of action. And you have to check in on it all the time. Numbers don't lie. Metrics are very predictable, right? And at the end of the day, most people are putting a blind eye to the metrics that matter, like your closing ratio, like how many appointments are in your calendar, like how many daily touches you're doing to new people every single day. You know, we start to focus on all the other things that we get away from the most important fundamental things. And then all of a sudden we realize we're dry with new business and we're like, what do we do now? The plan isn't working. No, you just strayed away from the plan originally because the real things that require building your business suck because a lot of people don't like selling. A lot of people don't like reaching out to new people because it requires, you know, a little bit of courage, a little bit of hard work and discipline. So anyways, and I would go one step further. The 5 people that you mentioned that raised their hand, I would go further and say maybe even 1 or 2 of those people that raise their hand and say they do, they probably don't. They probably don't. They probably misunderstood the question or realized that everybody's staring at them, so they have to keep their hand up because they want to keep that authority.
If I keep the conversation going, Jose, the question becomes, okay, who here has an implementation plan? Because what I say to you or anybody is that if this goal is important to you and it's important to your business, it should be in your calendar. And if it's important to you, you will then protect that time on your calendar. So if we're talking about marketing, or in this case, maybe sales, you've got 3 or 4 different hours throughout your week blocked so that you can make your phone calls, you can do your follow-ups, and that's protected because that's what's important. Therefore, that time is important. But if you're not implementing, all that strategy is for nothing. It's useless, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you don't have a plan, they say you're planning to fail, right? And success is a planned event, right? Success is a planned event. You have to know how you're going to attack. And the crazy thing is that so many people acknowledge defeat before the battle even happens, right? They are already defeated mentally before they even step into the daily battlefield of business, right? And a lot of the issues in business and scaling and growth and getting to the next levels are just a mindset tweak away from the next level. A lot of people just need a little tweak.
So Jose, when you talk about the bookends of your day, I think, you know, it's fascinating, right? There's a lot of people that talk about how you start your day. I think you're right. A lot fewer people talk about how do you end your day to get started for the following day. But, you know, certainly some of those behaviors, you know, there's a lot of people listening that I'm sure have heard those before, right? What do you think it is on why people don't stick with it? Because I think in so many things in life that people know what they're supposed to do, but then to that point, that next step of day in and day out, staying disciplined to keep showing up every day and executing based on what you committed to.
Well, there's 2 things there. Number one, their why isn't crystal clear. It isn't a clear why, or it isn't big enough, or a combination of both. So that's the first thing, because that's where it all starts and ends, right? And then in addition to that, they lack the discipline muscle, right? Just like we stimulate our mind and work on that muscle, we stimulate our body and work on our 24-inch pythons, right? We also have to work the discipline muscle, the willpower. And truth be told, willpower declines throughout the day. And at the end of the day, you have the least amount of willpower. You're just ready for bed. You're ready to put your feet up and have a beer and watch Netflix or whatever it is for whoever, right? Or have a glass of wine with your wife or just, you know, whatever it is. But it's nothing productive in most cases. So that's why they say eat the frog. That's why Brian Tracy wrote the book, Eat the Frog. Talks about whatever the most challenging thing is in your day, you got to put it on the front of your day, right? If for you sales or phone calls in your sales business is the hardest thing to do, that should be the first thing you do when you get in the office. Get it out the way. Stop saving it for later, because eventually by the time you get to that point, you don't want to do it. You're going to find every reason in the book to not do it. So I think you got to have a crystal clear why that is massively big, and you know exactly why you're doing what you're doing. And B, you have to make sure you are flexing your discipline muscle on all of the things that you do, from how you eat to the fitness to using your planner to reading 10 pages a day to making the phone calls and committing to, I'm going to make 5 new outreaches today, and I'm going to go on social media twice a day. All the micro decisions that you make, like Dan Hardy talks about in the compound effect, they stack up over time, just like interest in the stock market, right? So the good decisions compound, and also your lack of decisions also compound. And you're either going up or you're going down, but you're never floating. You know, they say if you're coasting, you're roasting. If you are here, then you are by default here. It's just a matter of time. So everything worthwhile is uphill all the way. If you don't feel uncomfortable, you're not doing enough.
Yeah, for sure. And
there's a lot to unpack there.
For sure. So the uncomfortable piece, I think, is a thing that is really interesting to me. I think sometimes people feel uncomfortable in doing certain things, but they're still focused on the wrong things. And when you talk about that morning routine, and maybe a different way to say this is, I feel like a lot of times people are trying to tackle too many things at once. So like, Chris and I have talked about, this behavior change, right? So when you talk about that morning routine and that night routine, I think a lot of times people try to change 7 different things all at once. And, I guess if in theory you have a huge why and that's going to make or break your life, maybe you can change that many things at once. But it's been my experience that, you can only change so much at once to build that habit, to your point, kind of build that habit muscle. In your experience, as you've kind of studied this, how fast can people implement these things realistically in a way that sticks?
So I reference books all the time. If you notice, I have books all around me. I'm an avid reader. I read about a book a week and sometimes 2 a week. Yeah, I think it's super important. I think reading is one of the lowest hanging fruits, to tap into, to just, download years of experience into a week or a couple of days or even a couple hours in some cases. So Jim Quick talks about small, simple steps, triple S, right? Small, simple steps. James Clear, Atomic Habits, he talks about the same thing, small, simple steps. So many people try to make these lofty goals when they never do even a third of that or a fourth of that. And then they go all the way in. I'm all in. I'm the all in kind of person. But just as you're all in, you're just as all out, right?
Yeah.
As fast as you get in, you're going to get out twice as fast. So the key is don't do something that is not sustainable. So that's one of the biggest recipes for disaster, which is why New Year's resolutions never last, because people make these lofty, I'm going to lose 50 pounds come January 1st. Why not today? Why are you waiting until January 1st? What's the difference, right? So going to your specific question here is how fast can it be done? Well, first of all, it can be done as fast as your discipline allows you to do it, right? And in most cases, not very fast, because there is a massive lack of discipline in the world right now, especially in the entrepreneurial world. Massive lack of discipline. So if somebody has high level discipline, I would say go for more. If you know that you're not the most disciplined person in the world, I would say start very small, right? Start very small. So in the morning, I would do 3 things for 15 minutes. In the evening, I would do 3 things for 10 or 15 minutes. So 30 minutes, 15 and 15, and just start there. But you have to keep in mind, so many people tell me, oh, I have a morning routine, I have an evening routine. I'm like, what does that consist of? I would love to learn. So please tell me. Oh, well, in the morning, I brush my teeth, I eat breakfast, I take a shower, I walk my dog, I, have my coffee. And then in the evening, I'm like, so everything you just said is not a morning routine. Those are things you're supposed to do.
Going through the motions
all day. Yeah, that's a routine, but it's not a morning routine. A morning routine is going to speak to self-care, which is ultimately self-love, which is pouring into the 10 life domains. That's going to make you smarter. It's going to improve your emotional state, your spiritual state, your parental state, your parenting state, your physical state, your intellectual. It's gonna affect all your 10 life domains. Things like reading, journaling, affirmations, visualization, fitness, nutrition, meditation, prayer, breath work. I mean, I can go, there's like 30 different things you can pick from in the morning and like 30 different things you can pick from at night. So just start off small and incrementally add 5 minutes every 2 weeks. If you're not disciplined at all, maybe every 30 days you have 5 minutes. But it's not how fast you get there. It's, for example, not how many books you get through. It's how many books get through to you. So it's not so much how many things you're doing in the morning or how fast you do it to get there. It's at least you're doing something and you're better off today than you were yesterday. The Kaizen philosophy, 1% every day, right?
Yep.
Jose, you talked about self-care. And to me, it's big. I think it's bigger than most people understand. Now, the ones who do that, who dedicate time for self-care and self-love, get it and they see the impact. But I say this to a lot of people when I'm on podcasts is if you can be selfish, only then can you be selfless, because you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of other people. Then you have the energy, the mental capacity to do things for others, which could be bringing your best self home to your spouse, being your best self at home with your children and your family, being the best coworker and colleague you can be. And you get the point. How big is self-care and self-love to you?
I think outside of God, faith, outside of taking care of your spouse and loving your spouse and your kids, it is right up there. It is right up there. It is because you cannot pour out of an empty cup, right? You cannot give what you don't have. So, it's somewhere in that realm. I'm not going to say it's first before everything. I'm not going to say it's after your kids. I'm going to say it's up there, and you have to find a way to do that, because at the end of the day, for me, I that's what has moved the needle for me. Ultimately, the biggest change that has happened for me has been my ability to say, you know what, I need to give myself time in the morning when the pets are in bed, when the kids are sleeping, when my wife is asleep, when there's no clients or trying to reach out to you. So I think it's absolutely critical. It is absolutely critical that we put time into ourselves, that we focus on self-care, because at the end of the day, if you don't, you will burn out. You will start to see decline in certain areas of your life, because it is essential for us to fill up our gas tank, our oxygen tank, right? Because our oxygen tank starts to dwindle over time.
So Jose, I'm curious, you talk about the books that you read, and we use that as an example. I mean, that's a behavior that the most successful people do. They read more books than average. And some people will even call you crazy. Like, I'm sure there's some people listening that are like, how can you possibly read that many books? I'm curious, is that part of your bookend routine, or is that something more in the middle of the day that you tend to do?
Both. It's actually both. I do 20 minutes in the morning routine, 20 minutes throughout my day in the nooks and crannies, as Austin Kleon likes to talk about. Austin Kleon talks about where do you find spare change in between your seats, right? In between the couches. Where do you find the spare non-productive time, like, throughout your day, right? Where do you find time to read? And I also do 20 minutes of my evening routine. So 20, 20, 20, that's a total of an hour a day. That's how much I read. Sometimes I do 90 minutes, but it's typically at least an hour a day. No less than 45 minutes, but I would say definitely an hour a day. And the idea is very simple.
Yeah.
Reading to me is a non-negotiable. There is something called the rule of five. John Maxwell coined this thing a long time ago. The rule of five. 5 things you do every single day, no matter what, that you're going to get done. And I don't care if it's your birthday, if you're on vacation, if you're not feeling well, if you've had a busy day, whatever. Every single day I pray, I read, I journal, I check and manage my finances, and I network. I meet new people, 3 new people every single day. So these are things that I do all the time. So when it comes to reading, and somebody says to me, "Oh my gosh, Jose, I wish I could read as much as you do. I wish I had time to read." I'm like, "But you do." "Oh no, I'm so busy." Look, we all wear the badge of honor of busy. We're all busy. Trust me, I get it. I have 5 kids. I built most of the stuff that I built. The first year of building what I built it with 5 kids, being a good husband, and with a full-time job. So when people tell me I'm tired and I have a long day and I'm busy, I'm like, try what I did, right? It's insane in terms of the amount of time. But going back to the point is, every single day we have 24 hours in a day, right? And we're going to make time for what we find to be a priority. So if you're not reading, it's not that you don't have the time, it's reading is not a priority to you.
Mhm.
That's all it is. So you just have to reframe the verbiage of how you see things, and perception is reality. So if you want to read, where do you find time to read? In the nooks and crannies of your day. When you're at the post office, when you're picking up your son from school, like I do sometimes, when you are, anywhere doing anything, hanging out, you have spared unproductive time. We all have it. Lunch break, you name it. So there's that.
I want to get your opinion on audiobooks. I get a lot of my books in through audiobooks. I also listen to a lot of podcasts, which is not the same. But do you think listening to a book is the same as reading a book?
No. I think you can still get value from audiobooks without question, because you're getting information. And if you're an auditory kind of learner, then absolutely, it's better for you than it is for me, because I'm more of a visual learner and kinesthetic as well, because I like hands-on stuff. But for some people that are, auditory learners, it's phenomenal and it's great. But I think there's a big difference between a physical book, right, which is why everything I read is physical, versus an audio. And the reason why is the difference between free weights and machines, right? If you're doing free weights and you're bench pressing with a barbell, Olympic barbell with 45-pound plates on the other end, you got to balance that bad boy, right? And as you're balancing that thing all yourself, you're incorporating other muscles that you normally wouldn't incorporate because you have to do all the work, right? So when it comes to audiobooks, it is very easy to get distracted when you're listening,
Yes.
because you can easily see something and be like, "Ooh,
Yep.
that's cool. What was that?" Or you start thinking, you start listening to that, but you start to tune out all of a sudden. You start thinking about something from yesterday or the day before, or you get a text or whatever. So it's great, it's awesome, but it's not the same thing, right? It's not the same thing. So I said, the way I see it is, when you're reading a physical book and you engage with the book, which I do all the time, it's called marginalia, right? Marginalia is writing in the nooks and crannies of your book, the dog ears, the margins, the underlining, the highlighting. Everything I do in my book, as you can see here, it's like completely lit up. And in the front of most of my books, I create my own index, right? And then there's like the sticky things in here, and I have the main takeaways, and you name it. So when you engage with the book, you start incorporating many other components of you, right? Especially if you're reading out loud. If you're reading out loud, that's the auditory piece, the visual piece with your eyes, right? The physical hands-on, because you're applying and you're writing notes down and you're kind of reinforcing what you're learning. It requires a heck of a lot more discipline to do a physical book than an audio. Nothing wrong with it, but this would win all day for me.
I would argue you're not engaging, you're immersing yourself in the book.
Sure.
Tell me about that weight set you have on your book stack of books to your left.
Oh, you can see it? Oh yeah. It's just a little thing. I have all kinds of things in my office that just kind of inspire me. So this is one of the things that inspire me to stay in the gym and stay, I guess in shape. This here, I have one of these bad boys, which reminds me of how finite time is and how valuable it is, and that tomorrow's not promised. I have this here. I have all kinds of fun things here. I have this here, fake money. That reminds me, like, I could easily have stacks of these everywhere if I wanted to, and do that kind of thing and just keep stacking it away. And to me, that's a means to an end. It reminds me that in order for me to get what I want, I need more of that. And it's not because of the money or the love of money. I think that's not what I'm talking about. It's money's a means to an end. So in order for me to create more impact, in order for me to change the world, in order for me to go on mission trips around the world and help people and serve people at the highest level, it requires more money. So I have a lot of different reminders and various things here on my desk, around my office, everywhere, that remind me of cool different things.
I
So
love
Jose,
it. I thought maybe the weight set was to tell people why they need to start reading books and stop listening to books.
Well, there's a connection. I did reference that connection. So yeah.
So one of the things that's measurable in talking with you, Jose, is passion. And I think, a lot of times when we talk a lot about mindset and getting your head space right and things like that, because it's not about motivation, but if your head isn't right, it is hard to stay disciplined. It is hard to show up, each and every day. And we all go through our ups and downs you're certainly having tremendous success, but you still have your ups and downs. I'm curious as you think about those, and maybe it's in your daily routine. How do you maintain your passion?
Well, there's a good old saying, and that's one of my secret sauces, why I even launched the Connected Leaders Academy, right? They say if you want to keep your dream alive, hang around dreamers, right? So if you want to be successful, hang around successful people. So one of the reasons why I absolutely love the Connected Leaders Academy is because everybody there are world changers. They're movers and shakers. They're titans of industry. They're high performers. They inspire me every single day. Even Chris, like I love the fact that I'm surrounded by people like Chris. That to me makes me better. It makes me want to keep achieving and keep doing more. One of my secret sauces in life is positioning myself to be around people that are better than me, right? That think differently. And I surround myself with knowledge, both from the people that I surround myself with and even my library. I have like thousands of books here in my home office and here from, ceiling to floor. I do that on purpose because it reminds me how little I know. It reminds me how ignorant I am, how there's so much more that needs to happen. So for me, it's all about just, staying around success. And success begets and breeds more success. And success, again, is not all monetary, because there's different forms of success. You could be a successful husband. You can be a successful father. You can be a successful son of God. You can be a successful, entrepreneur, author. There's all kinds of success. And when you're firing on all cylinders, which it's never going to be perfect, but when you're making a concerted effort to fire on all cylinders and surround yourself with greatness, sky's the limit.
Love it.
I couldn't agree more. Jose, as we get closer to the end of the podcast, I want to talk and bring a lot of this back to leadership, because the core audience we have are true leaders, just like what you have in your audience and in your community. And I want to know what you feel like are some of the most important elements in leadership. So obviously you're leading a community. Many of us are leading our clients. We're leading our followers on social media. What are some takeaways that you would love to instill in the audience that are just so critical for leadership in today's world?
Well, for one, you got to be on the front lines. I don't believe in management. I think you manage things like your pocketbook and your budget, your calendar. I don't think you manage people. So leadership requires you to be on the front lines. So you got to be walking the walk and talking the talk on from the work ethic all the way to your character and your integrity. So super, super important, hypercritical, that transparency is key. People don't have to try to figure you out. They just know that what you are is what you are and who you are is who you are, right? What you see is what you get. And what I say is what I mean. And hold me accountable by my words. And my actions speak so loudly, I hear not what you say. So leadership means I am on the front lines. You will catch me in the act of excellence at all times. And if I ever fall short, even in the slightest bit, you better believe, like Jocko Willink says in Extreme Ownership, that I'm going to take extreme ownership. Because at the end of the day, as a leader, it all falls back on you. You are not allowed to be pointing fingers as a leader. It is you. And don't ask for things to be easier, ask for you to be better, right? There's all kinds of great sayings out there. So for me, it's being transparent. It's being on the front lines. It's knowing that leadership is influence, that you have the ability to influence people at the highest levels to do the things that they need to do, right? And most people want to be around people who are moving and shaking, that are creating massive change, that are creating global impact. They want to be around you. And the way you give honor to that is by being your very best at all times, and knowing that as a leader, you don't have the luxury to be lazy. As a leader, you don't have the luxury to make mistakes. And when you do, you immediately, because we're not perfect, and there's mistakes that are forgivable and dismissible and whatever, and then there's mistakes that are like, man, like, what are you thinking, right? So, but as a leader, you got to know that you are under the microscope. You are being watched, and the way you are at home is the way you should be in the public eye, and the way you're in the public eye is the way you should be at home. You cannot be two different people and serve two masters. You got to be true and true all the way through at all of what you do. And again, excellence to me is an all the time thing as a leader.
I love that. That's a very inspiring message to walk away with. I love the extreme ownership part. And just very quickly, it resonates with me because a couple of years ago, I had a situation in business where I had a friend take advantage of me. And I ended up telling the story. And I said, look, it's ultimately my fault. And someone said, well, how could you say that? And I said, well, I allowed it to happen. If it wasn't for me, wanting to do this, which was give them a discount, or me wanting to do that, I probably could have prevented this from happening. And that's the way I look at things. And I say, it's up to me. I'm the leader, and I'm the one that's ultimately going to fall on the sword. I think when you start to adapt that mentality, you realize that you really are responsible for a lot more than you think you are, and that things don't necessarily happen to you, but they happen because of your actions. And so a lot to unpack there, but absolutely phenomenal. Jose, thank you for being on the show today. Before we let you off the hook, though, take a moment to tell people where they can find you. Talk to us a little bit about the Entrepreneur's Bookshelf, as well as the Connected Leaders Academy.
Yeah, so very simple. If you want to find me, you can connect with me on Facebook. That's where I live. That's my second home. I have a LinkedIn account, and to be completely forthright, my LinkedIn is outdated completely. It still says I work for Liberty Mutual. I don't even know how long ago that was. So I do have homework to do. By the end of this year, I assure you, I will have it up to date and spiced up, and I'll start working on building my LinkedIn. But Instagram is a little bit better. I don't use it as often, but it's definitely slightly more up to date. Facebook is where I do all my activity, where anybody can follow me and really get some value, because I'm always looking to add value to people every single day. I'm posting pretty often, and I'm always engaging with everyone. If you want a copy of my book, which is, again, a game changer, I highly recommend it for anybody who wants to level up their morning and evening routine. Check out the website. It's www.winningthedaybook.com. So basically the title of the book, Winning the Day, and then at the end, book, winningthedaybook.com. That's actually less expensive if you get it there than on Amazon. And I will send you a signed, personalized copy myself. So there's that. And then also in terms of the Entrepreneur's Bookshelf, that's my coaching, author, and speaker business, right? The website does exist. It's www.theentrepreneursbookshelf.com, theentrepreneursbookshelf.com. You can book a call with me there. You can check out some things that I'm up to there. The Connected Leaders Academy is, again, a growing tribe of entrepreneurs. We're expanding every single day. Stay tuned as we continue to scale and get into 100 countries with 1 million members, some of the highest level entrepreneurs around. If you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, and you want to do some of the things I mentioned earlier in the podcast here, then reach out to me. Let's have an exploratory chat and see if it's a good fit for you. I'd love to welcome you into the Connected Leaders Academy. So much opportunity here to really scale and grow your business. And in the next, I'd say 2 to 3 weeks, probably, I think this podcast will probably be up before that, but in the next 2 to 3 weeks from today, today's August 1st, we're looking at connectedleadersacademy.com. It will be live. It will be live because now that I've hit certain markers and benchmarks in the business, now we're going to go ahead and scale this bad boy with all kinds of automation. So there will be a website, there will be funnels and automation, there will be email marketing, there will be all kinds of fancy things, including Facebook ads. So stay tuned as we do that. In the meantime, until it's up, when it does get up, check out connectedleadersacademy.com. I look forward to connecting with many of you and whoever wants to connect.
Folks, you heard it. Connected Leaders Academy. I'm a member. I love it. Since I've been featured on about 3 or 4 podcasts. I've been asked by 2 different people to contribute to a book. Just a really awesome group of people who are not just there to try to sell you their product or service. So all the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. We appreciate your ears. Until next time, peace.